Good evening, everybody. I just really want to point out that I had the same scripture that Jeff was shared. And the message part, I love the way that it puts it, because it's like you hear the invitation over and over again. And Jesus, in the message, it says, come and learn the unforced rhythms of grace. And when I think about that, I think about everything else in our life can sometimes seem forced and tiring. But the thing that Jesus invites us to is something that is unforced, and there's a rhythm to it, and it's covered in grace. So I just really appreciated that you shared that, Jeff. So tonight we are in the second week of the third quarter of being reconciled to creation. And the theme for this quarter is fulfillment. So last quarter, Eric, I don't know if he got this from somewhere or if he thought it up himself. I wouldn't put it past him, the great thinker that Eric is. Because our theme has been that creation is frustrated, that we as God's people are the first fruits of the fulfillment that is coming. And so tonight we're going to talk about tangibly how to be the fulfillment of what a reconciled relationship with creation looks like. So this statement says, being the first fruits means living according to the hope of the fulfillment and not accepting frustration as just the way things are. So not just thinking like, okay, the air's polluted, that kind of sucks. Or that the earth itself, the soil is depleted, that's just kind of how it's going to be. But that our relationship with creation, as God's word says, is to be reconciled. So how are we as first fruits going to be that fulfillment? And we're going to use the list that Phil handed out last week, which I passed out again. He gave some really great tangible examples. Eric came up with that list, and it's broken into 4 categories. I forgot to give myself one. And the 4 are food, transportation, purchasing, and lifestyle. And these aren't rules. I don't want to want you to leave here thinking you have to do all of these or really any of these exactly this way. These are some suggestions that we thought, or Eric thought, might be helpful as you consider what it would be like to be the first fruits, so to be the example of what a relationship with creation looks like. So Jeremy and I are just going to go briefly through these and kind of make the connection why these are important. So why eating local? Why does that kind of help our relationship with the earth be reconciled? Or why does changing the way in which you move around the city, why does that have a great effect on our reconciled relationship to creation? So Jeremy is going to take the first one.
All right, good evening, everyone. All right, well, the first one that I'm going to share is eat local whenever possible. That is, it's kind of hard to see why that's important if you don't know the food system at all. But it's one of those things that you don't necessarily know this, that how much do you think, for every dollar you spend on food, how much do you think goes to the farmer? Any guesses?
2 cents.
No? It's a little low.
25 cents.
25 cents? That's pretty good. That's a good guess. I think she might have seen my notes.
No, I didn't.
Okay, so for every dollar spent on produce, farmers get around 27 cents of that. And you may wonder, where does the other 73 cents go? Well, it goes to diesel transport from the farm to the processing plant. And then it gets processed at the plant, and then it gets transported again sometimes to cold storage, where it just stays in like a refrigerator. So it's like, okay, you have to pay for that too. And then it'll go to get transported again to a store, and then we transport it back to our house. So there's like a lot of steps to that. But when to get to the store, and then there's all the people involved in it all the way there. So there's a broker. There's actually a person that says, hey, we'll buy all of your grapes from you at this cost, and they'll have them shipped to a distribution center that may be in another city, and then they could sell them back to a store in Fresno, and then they get shipped all the way back. And you're paying this guy to do that, and it's like, you could be shipping it a total of 2 miles distance, but we're paying for that also. So, but when you buy from a farmer's market, oh, well, I forgot to tell you, but when the money that goes to the farm, the percentage that goes to the people who actually pick the fruit is only 1 to 2%. So out of every dollar, 1 to 2 cents goes to the people who pick it. The other 27, well, that comes out of that 27. The rest goes to the farmer and all of his equipment and overhead. So when we say eat local, oh, go ahead.
So I was gonna say also, I also talked to some of the produce people inside, and they say they pick them while it's not ripe.
Yes.
So that it has a life shelf. So that's why it doesn't taste as good as it does off the vine.
Yeah, you pick it early and it's firm. It's really hard. It can handle being shipped around and loaded into a truck, 8 feet deep sometimes, and not break. A tomato that can fall out of a truck and not burst. So yeah, so eating. So the way that it's I guess good for the environment is you're eating healthier food when it's picked ripe. It's got more nutrients in it. You're saving a lot of the transport. Usually, if it's from a farmer's market, if you're eating locally. A lot of times it's straight from the farm, straight to the market. So it gets transported once, maybe a little bit of distance at the farm to the storage area. And then, and then what percentage of that goes to the farmer? Depending on how large he is, if he doesn't have many employees, he gets all of it. So, that's really supporting the local farmers and cutting down the food miles. I believe our food in the United States travels an average of 1,500 miles. So, we get stuff from the East Coast and we get stuff from China, and it averages out to 1,500 miles. So we're getting garlic from China some of the year, and we have Gilroy that's like, I don't know how far it is, 110 miles maybe to Gilroy, but we get garlic from China, because I think they're buying garlic from Gilroy because Gilroy's got the good garlic, and it's cheaper to buy it. The products from China are cheaper, but you think about how much it costs. How can that be cheaper? Well, they're not paying their employees very much. So is that good also? Is it good to have really, really cheap labor, people barely making it? Or we can support a farmer who can hire people and pay them a little bit better prices and have work done here in the United States. So that was kind of long on that. Okay, another thing that you can do is cut meat out of 1 meal a week would be good. So yeah, that's a tough one, and I didn't like that one either. But I understand a little more of like why that's important. Number one is just meat. Usually, in the way that we prepare meat, often it's not good for us. So we don't really need meat, but it's great, and you don't have to give it up. You can be healthy and still eat meat, but try eating less. We're going to show you a quick video, 2-minute video.
There we go. Oh, yes. Yes. So we've got our pigs going on here. They're Tamworth Berkshire crosses. And we grass feed them. As you can see, they're grazing on their own. We get them when they're little, and we only give them enough feed, organic feed, to keep a 30-pound pig alive. So then throughout the year, if they want to eat, and pigs are notoriously hungry, they got to go out and get it. So through the course of the season, they'll graze on grass. Their favorite is in June, July. They're eating lots of mulberries. There we go. Come on, let's go. Let's go, belly pig. Let's give us a belly. Oh, we got 2 belly pigs. Then later on in the summer, they'll start to get hazelnut cleanings from when we're processing hazels. They'll apple pressings from the cider. And then after we harvest chestnuts in the fall, we'll turn them loose in the chestnuts, and they go out and they pick up the stuff that fell in the tall grass that we missed. And we have some of the finest grass-fed hazelnut, apple, and chestnut finished pork that you can get. Look at these guys eating while sleeping. So in the last month of their life, we feed them on a trailer, we whistle them up, they learn how to climb on the trailer. So then the last day of their life, when they go to the slaughterhouse, you just whistle them up, they climb on the trailer, and you drive away. One bad day. They have one bad day. Come on. Let's go this way, guys. Come on. Come on, guys. There we go.
All right, so I wanted to show you guys some, like a small farmer who is like a good shepherd, okay? You can tell that that guy loves his pigs, and I think he was getting a little teary-eyed when he was saying, that they have one bad day. Okay, you know, because with somebody who really loves their animals, even though you know you're going to eat them eventually, you kind of, you know, that's someone who's close to the animals and takes care of them. And in the old days, we used to have to do that. When we don't have to take care of the animals, we don't have to slaughter the animals. It's easy to eat meat and waste meat when you don't have to take care of them and raise them and slaughter them. Okay, it's easy for us to not appreciate the life that gave the meat. So, this is a picture of how most of the meat that we eat is grown. At least finished like this. So this is how they spend the last like a month of their life. They're plumping them up, and then sometimes they'll start feeding them a little healthier stuff then, so that you can't taste so that it changes the flavor of the meat to make it better. So this is how they finish them in these, it's called a CAFO, concentrated animal feeding organization. That's what it is. So anyway, it's pretty much like a jail for pigs, where they just feed them. They don't let them move much. Muscles kind of deteriorate. They get a little softer and tender, and they're pretty much just hang out in their own poop right before they go to the slaughterhouse. So this is how most of our meat's grown. So the idea is you cut back on your meat, and maybe eat by buying a higher quality, better treated animals is the way that you cut back on your meat, because the meat's more expensive, because it's hard to find. So maybe you buy higher quality meat and just eat a little bit less, okay, so that you're not supporting these things also breed diseases, which is why they have to put so many antibiotics in the meat. So because you think if we lived in our own poop, we would die of diseases too. So yeah, but you can shoot us full of antibiotics and keep us alive. That's what they do with that. So the idea is cut back on your meat, support sustainable and a healthy treatment of animals. Even though we're going to eat them, it's still, you know, we should treat creation better, like the Good Shepherd, and give them a better life. And you know, it would be nice to be eating meat that's had one bad day, and the rest of their life's been, you know, they've been a pig or a cow, and not like a kind of a slave. So I think I have one more picture. So yeah, they're just in these little tiny little cages, and some of the animals they actually pin them down so that they can't move. And it's just, I don't know, and then they have trouble getting rid of all the waste that's created in these facilities. So just try and, I guess that's just one thing, just try and be more aware of what you're purchasing if you can. Sometimes you just can't afford it, but that's just one way that you can help with being reconciled to creation through eating differently. Okay, also you can eat in season whenever possible, because if you're eating foods that are harvested during the winter or the fall and winter, then the food is not being stored in refrigerators using electricity, which we get from water or from burning coal or oil. So if you can eat in season, the food doesn't have to be stored, and it's at farmers markets, and it's usually pretty cheap when it's in season. if they have to store it for a while, then they have to raise the price to cover storage fees and everything. So
Do you have a list of what vegetables and fruit are in season during the seasons?
I don't have a list of what's of that, but I do have a link that you can go to find that. We can,
Yeah, we'll put it on the on-ramps. I was gonna print it up, but it was pretty extensive, and I don't want to waste paper. So we'll put it on the Facebook page. That's a great question.
yeah. So there are some books on eating in season that have some really simple recipes, because most of the recipes are, the majority of the ingredients, unless they're seasonings, are just things that are available from farmers markets and any grocery store. So, that's it.
I did not know, probably till 4 years ago, that you could actually, like, there were different I know this sounds really ridiculous, but there were different seasons in which different fruit and vegetables were ripen. Because when I grew up, I thought that I could buy a peach anytime I wanted, or a potato anytime that I wanted, and I can. But what it did is as we've kind of been on this journey of reconciliation back to the earth, is was unaware that there were different seasons and different cycles. And so as we begin to eat in season, I feel like I'm in a more of a natural rhythm of the earth, you know? And so, I don't know, that's a challenge to you. And as you go to the farmers markets, I mean, you will see what's in season. And something that we have talked a lot about too is when you are at the farmers market, you actually meet the farmer. Like, you actually meet the person who grows your food, and you can ask him or her anything that you want, and they will tell you how it was grown. They'll tell you how to cook it. They'll tell you, I mean, they love to share about what they're doing. And one of the things we shared about last month is that there's a gap between us and creation, and there's a gap in the way in which we relate to the earth. And so by shortening that gap and coming closely connected to the one that grows our food, the one that touches the soil, is a way in which we can, those little things make a difference. They might not seem like they will make a difference, but they make a difference. And we have seen that in our life. The next thing we want to talk about is transportation. So why is this important? Why do we want to consolidate our errands to one trip in the car? Why would we want to use alternative transportation when possible? So walking or biking, carpooling. Why would we want to organize a ride share with neighbors or coworkers? And we live in a unique situation, or place in California, the Central Valley. And most of us know that it's shaped like a bowl. So, and most of us know that we get a lot of the smog and things from other parts of the world. California blows in, and that just gets stuck. That, according to lots of studies, Fresno is at least in the top 5, depending on which one you look at, as the worst quality of air. It is also one of the worst places for children that suffer with asthma, and I don't think that is a coincidence. The only way that smog is kind of complicated. I was going to give you a big scientific thing, but I don't think it's necessary. It's made basically from what our cars produce. We are in a large ag area, so that's what farming equipment can also produces, and pesticides. So you can kind of see how maybe food and transportation are connected as well. So the reality is we live in this space that's a bowl, and the only way that will get out is by the wind, which doesn't happen because we live in a bowl, or rain, and we live in a place where there's not a lot of rain. So then we should be really aware of what we're putting into the earth. So as I was trying to figure out how this worked, smog is created, and you know that the trees clean the air, but the trees cannot clean smog because it's dust particles. So it literally is stuck unless we breathe it in, and that causes asthma. So we just need to be aware of how often we're driving or how we're driving. So the reality is, for most of us, we have to drive to work, right? So for most of us, we have to do that. But can we tag on a couple of errands before or after we go to work? Or can we even pay attention to the way that we're driving? There's a lot of studies that show that if we are not like gunning it all the time, or stop and go, it has an impact on the kind of things that our vehicle produces. Another thing that I have noticed as I try to incorporate walking into where I'm going is that it actually puts me in a closer proximity to creation. So instead of being in my car on the asphalt, I'm walking closer to actually physical creation. I encounter other creatures, God, birds, people, and then it's shortening the gap. So of course this takes a little bit more planning. It takes a little bit to be more intentional, but it's worth it, right? So as we have considered the last few years how we have been challenged to incorporate some of these in the rhythm of our life, we have learned that it takes a little bit of a sacrifice and it requires us to slow our life down a bit. So not to be everywhere all the time, driving fast, everywhere all over Fresno, but to like think about our choices and how they're not only affecting the earth, but how they're affecting others. So that is a reason why we would want to do that. And plus you could ride with your neighbors to work. Or if you're going, there's a lot of us that live in this community and sometimes we travel far across town for an event or something like that. Could we just pile all in the same car and, I don't know, talk to each other and, kind of engage in that way as well. So that is some things to think about as we think about transportation. Oh, yeah, so sorry, there's that. There's a really cool, I'll put a link on the On-Ramps page. There was just like a ton of stuff. We didn't know what to share. But there is somebody did a blog and they had a picture of Fresno when it was really, really, really smoggy. And it was looking over downtown into the east. And then they took one a few months later after it had rained. And it was like, you can like roll the mouse over it. I'll put it on there and you can see like what it looked like before when it was all smoggy, and then you can put your mouse back over it and like what the air looked like after the rain. It was kind of eye-opening to see what we're breathing in. So, yeah.
Purchasing. All right, so there's a law, which I haven't really looked too much into the law that's coming out, I guess, about the plastic bags. Does anybody here know anything about that? Tish, you want to share? Can you share? Let us
So I don't
know.
know like the whole law, I just know that it should be passing sometime next year, where you'll have to purchase your grocery bags. I think it's like 10 cents a bag. So that's why they're trying to make everybody buy their reusable bags, but then you have the people that are outside in front of the stores that are petitioning that because they want to stop that. So that way they give the people a chance to vote instead of the state just telling us that we have to do that.
Okay.
So it's like I didn't sign the petition because I felt like, with the plastic bags, we see it, watching Discovery Channel, like how they affect the seals and, like people just throw bags everywhere. Like I have 1 million bags at home, like why are they here, So, it's
Plastic-
not, I think it's a
plastic
good
bags are-
thing actually, that
Yeah.
they're stopping us from using bags.
They're kind of amazing because like they can really travel far. I've watched one.
Just said one.
And it floated so high that I couldn't see it anymore. I was waiting for a bus that only ran once an hour. And so I'm just sitting on the bus stop, just watching this thing go, and I could not see it anymore. Who knows where that thing went, but it's pretty amazing. So, and I always find them in my yard too, so maybe that's where it ended up. But yeah, so plastic bags. We use a lot of them, and we reuse ours when we do get them. We use them as trash bags and like waste baskets and stuff. So we're repurposing it. And also, these reusable bags are very handy, not just for groceries, but anytime we go anywhere, we're just loading these bags up with all kinds of stuff to travel. I haven't done that, but you can take stuff, we travel and everything. These are just like great all-purpose bags. And if you really want to save money, Kim made this yesterday. This was an old t-shirt of mine that you pretty much just lay a t-shirt out and you cut the bottom of it. You just put some slices up it and then you tie those together. And so you turn it inside out first, tie them, and then you flip it back and it gets rid of the kind of the frilly stuff. And on the inside, you'll see a bunch of these. She likes the frilly, but I thought I don't really like the frilly. And this is my workout t-shirt here, It was, it's not anymore. So, but anyway, you can make bags, and yeah, this was a pretty large shirt. It was way bigger than I needed, but I used to wear really baggy clothes, so. So yeah, I mean, it's really strong too. So, and the more you leave on the sleeves, the stronger it is, but I had everything that I brought today inside of this. So, and it's something that you can make for free or really cheap. You can go to the neighborhood thrift and you can fill up a bag some days for
$12 now.
$12. You can fill up a bag full of stuff, but or just use an old T-shirt that you find. They're pretty easy to come by. I already talked about purchasing some products that are a little more sustainable. So if you do some research, you can find out that some companies care more about the environment than others, and some act like it, and can be kind of hard to tell. But if you can just, when you know, just try and make a good choice and just change start small. Nobody's gonna leave here, including me, and do everything, the way that we think we should. So just start small and do something, and something is better than nothing. And you can have all the best intentions in the world and not act on them, and then you have done nothing. So just start with something. Start small. So this is just a mason jar. We bought like a 12-pack of these really cheap at, I think, Walmart. And you can just use these as like for like a water bottle. A lot of people like glass because, for one, it's recyclable. It's really, it lasts, well, not forever, but it lasts a really long time. And unless it's being, damaged by breaking or sand and wind. So it's better than this, recycling is good. But what's even better than recycling is reusing, because it costs money. You have to heat up, you have to melt this stuff down and reform it, and you have to, oftentimes they heat it and then they let it cool in like blocks, and they'll go and reheat it when it's time to melt it and make it into something else. So it's using a lot of energy, creates a lot of exhaust. Recycling, although it's better than trashing it, it's still not the best thing for the environment. So try and reuse stuff. Buy some water bottles. There are some plastic reusable water bottles, which I think I gave to my daughter, and that's why I don't have it in my bag. That is another way that you can reconcile to creation through purchasing. So, borrow things that you only use occasionally from neighbors or fellow on-ramps. On-ramp members. So there's things like ladders. Ladders are really expensive. And like the aluminum ones and the fiberglass ones, they're a resource that, not everybody needs one. I mean, you can have for every 10 houses, you can have one ladder, and that's enough. But we would rather go and, if we have the money, go and buy one instead of talking to our neighbor. That's how life has become. We're not communicating with each other. We just want to be able to do everything on our own. So, but we could save on the manufacturing and the trashing of things like this if we just share some things sometimes. So that is another thing, because we have so much stuff. There's so much in America, especially. We throw away more stuff than a lot of countries have. So let's share, communicate, be willing to share with people, but not abuse it. I know this is something that can be abused very easily. So it's also nice if you've got something that you can offer a neighbor in exchange. Say, hey, you can borrow this when you need it. So, all right.
So the last category is lifestyle. And for me, this is kind of what balances it out. We can have all of these actions and not have the meaning behind it or a heart to reconcile to creation. And they're just actions, and they'll get us very far, but they won't really provide longevity or the momentum that we need to keep it going. Or we can just have good intentions with no follow through, and sometimes that's not very good either, because then there's no follow through. So the lifestyle category is what balances out for me. And to be quite honest, our journey kind of started out of this. For those of you that know, we have property where we're growing tons and tons of food, and it didn't start that way. It's not like we saw this unjust food system and thought, oh, let's try a way to balance that out or be reconciled to creation. It was started, want to do the next one, and then we'll go back to this. So before we moved over on Yosemite Street, we lived somewhere else in North Fresno, and this was the little spot that we grew our first tomato plant. So this is the one decision that we made without knowing that this was going to start a journey to being reconciled to creation. So one tomato seed in this one little spot. 3 years later is the next slide. That is a third of our property that's all food. And so I guess the connection I'm trying to make is just like one change. So we can be so overwhelmed when we look at that list of all the different areas and all of the different things, and we don't know where to start, okay? Pick one and start there. Okay, there's things that aren't even on that list that you can start doing. So we didn't even touch like the water issue. Okay, that is a whole nother thing. So maybe there's something on your heart where you want to use water as your avenue. And the thing that we have found is once you choose one of these and God further develops that, you're going to see how they're connected to other parts of creation. So for us, food has been so transformative because plants need air, plants need water, plants need soil, plants needs nutrients. Animals eat plants. Well, they should be eating plants. They're eating other things. You know, and how all of these things were created to work together. So my challenge is to pick one thing, you know, and be challenged, can you go back to the other one, to incorporate scripture into that, the lifestyle one. Because as we have kind of taken one step at a time, it really has challenged us, changed the way that we have related to God as our creator. So I didn't even know how to relate to him as creator until we started on this journey of being reconciled back to creation. Our relationships to our neighbors have changed. Our relationships with ourselves as God's creation has been changed. So it's not this other thing that has been added to our life. God has woven it into the other parts of our life already. So how do I already relate to him? How does God as creator God want to relate to me? And how does that change the way I relate to other people and other parts of his creation? So yeah, we want to ask God to show you which in your life is still conformed to the pattern of this world and that values and dishonors God's creation, and then do something about it. Just what's that one thing? If you want to change the way in which you eat, you know, I mean, honestly, when you look at the way that we treat our food, like the issue with the pigs is not isolated to the issue with the pigs. It's in chicken, it's in beef, it's in all of that stuff. So, you know, what is God's heart when he thinks about that? And how can we live as the first fruits of the fulfillment? Right, so last week Phil talked about all the scriptures about how there's going to be reconciliation and peace within creation, within the animals, and with us. And so how do we live as the first fruits of that fulfillment? And it's happening on a micro scale. Pray for new eyes to appreciate and honor the beauty of God's creation in new ways, even in the city. It's possible. And we don't have to go outside of the city to experience God's creation. Spend one less hour a day with TV or internet and replace it with an hour of tending to some plants that you've grown. Start with 1 hour a week. Okay, maybe 1 hour a day is too much. Start with 1 hour a week. Start with one plant in your kitchen. Start with that. You know, like I didn't know what to cook with herbs. I didn't know how to use rosemary. I didn't know how to use thyme until I started growing them. And I was like, okay, I have this big plant. What am I going to do with it? You know, and so it kind of started this thing. We think we killed like 3 rosemary plants, to be quite honest, before I knew what to do with rosemary. You know, but we just kept going. Yeah, until...
That's one in the picture right there.
Yeah, right there. See that plant right there? That is the dead rosemary, the first of many. But we just kept going, you know. I think we've killed more plants than we probably should admit. But that's okay. You know, through the death of those plants, I learned, gosh dang it, those plants don't need that much water. And I'm like watering it. It's turning yellow. I'm like thinking it needs more water. And no, it doesn't. It's drowning. Jeremy is like, oh my gosh. You know, but through that, I learned that too much water is a bad thing. It can be a bad thing. Especially when it's in a pot that doesn't get drainage. If you're walking through your neighborhood and see trash, pick it up. You are a steward of creation and embrace your calling. Yeah, so just one thing, guys. If it starts with the trash or something like that, allow God to speak to you through that. Through our journey, we see how creation is talked about in Scripture differently. And we see how God, there are things that we have read, and I'm like, oh, he's actually talking about the plants in that passage, and he cares for them and the animals. And so, yeah, I guess what I'm trying to make is, it's easy to be overwhelmed by the frustration of creation when you look at so much of this stuff. But there is hope, and it's what we are called to be living that out. And we can just do one thing. It can lead to something else. So our stations are pretty simple tonight. Okay. We have whole life giving, and we have communion. We always have communion the second Saturday of the month. So if you would like to partake in communion, it's in the back. There's a table back there. It's got just some handouts. There's one that has the local farmers markets. There's 3 now that I know of. It's kind of in the winter season, so they're not as abundant as they are in spring and summer. But there are some where they're located back there. I put some recipes together that are simple and that can be easily manipulated depending on what's in season. So there's a salad dressing recipe that's got a few ingredients. There's a roasted vegetables, and it gives specific vegetables, but you can substitute those for anything that you want that is in season. There is a packet of scripture if you're really wanting to see how scripture speaks of creation and you're wanting to deepen that part of your journey. You can do that. So we'll probably give about maybe 7 to 10 minutes for some reflection. If you want to go to the different stations, maybe think about one way in which you feel God tugging on your heart to connect on a deeper level with creation. Think about that, and then we'll come back here and maybe give about 5 minutes for some corporate reflection if anybody wants to share anything. So.
I also want to just let you know, don't. There's a term called paralysis by analysis. Okay, that's where you're just looking into what can all these things that need to change. All this stuff is wrong. It's too big. There's nothing I can do. And then you don't do anything. Okay, and that's what a lot of people spend their lives doing, is just looking at how big the problem is. Just like when there were people starving in Africa, you see, oh, there's millions. What can I do? Well, I can't do anything, so I don't do anything, and nothing happens. Okay, so don't be a victim of that. That's a distraction. Do what you can.
I want to give an opportunity for just a corporate debrief about maybe something that you feel challenged to make space for as it relates to your relationship with creation. I just want to open that up. If you would like to share something, a thought, a challenge, a pushback maybe on what we've said. Yeah, so let's open that up. Or maybe you've been encouraged to live differently. Answer one of those 2 questions. What is one change that you or your family plans to make? Or how has your view of stewardship of the earth changed? And it doesn't have to be limited to tonight, but throughout this whole quarter as you think about tangibly living this out.
Well, one of the things that you were talking about with food, eating in season whenever possible, seriously, 2 weeks ago, I was thinking about this very thing, about eating vegetables and fruit within the season.
And that's one thing that we still struggle with doing. Like sometimes I want to buy a watermelon in December, but yeah, thank you. Yeah.
So last week, when we talked about it, I think when Marsha mentioned turning off the water while I brush my teeth. I never thought about that because I waste a lot of water. So when I'm brushing my teeth, the water will just be on while I'm brushing. When I'm taking a shower, I'll turn it on for a little bit and wait until all the hot water runs out, and then it's time to get out. Like just stuff like that. So I'm trying to use less water. Or when I'm in the kitchen cooking and I'm washing dishes, the water's just running. There's no first aid. Like just turn it off.
Say we were raking leaves and I stepped off the curb and a twig like hit me in the head, like on the tree. And so I reached up and I like snapped it out the way real quick and totally got checked. Like, why'd I just break the branch on the tree? And then I felt really bad too. And that would have never happened before this series. For real. It was just all green on the inside. It was, yeah, I was like, oh, it was, oh.
It was all sapping. It was sapping to death.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tish?
Just like when you first started, I'm thinking, yeah, you can buy peaches all year long. Like, I never thought about it, that they're in season, because I don't deal with plants, I don't really care about plants, but it's just bringing a whole new thing, like, to me, you know, paying attention to the plants at work. I'm just like, oh, these need to be watered, you know, I'm like, what? So it's just, who cares about a poinsettia, but I'm just like, I notice these things now.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa, you know, this is cool. This is still God's creation, you know? He put it here for us to enjoy, not to abuse, so it's good.
Well, I buy cage free eggs when I can, when it's possible. They're a little more expensive, but I just feel really bad for the animals, and I think that's one thing that I think about. I do feel bad for them, how they have to endure sort of a terrible, pretty terrible life until the end of their life. And I just think about that. I think about, you know, I know that God provided them for us to eat. Some people don't believe that, and that's okay. However, yeah, just think about those things. Meat, not always, because it's really expensive, but like Jeremy said, if you can, we just don't eat a lot of meat anyways. But.
Yeah.
Just the video, when you're showing the video with the pigs, that made me like think different about meat, because I'm like, you're sitting here petting this thing, and then you're gonna kill it and eat it? Like, who does that? I could eat meat because I'm not the one raising it and I'm not killing it. But I'm just like, I couldn't see myself raising something, I'm sitting there petting it, playing with it outside, and then I'm gonna kill it. Like, I just don't understand that concept, you know? So I was just like, wow, like, I don't know, that just made me feel sad for the animal.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, that's sad.
There was that makes me think of one of the, I think the very first night we started this series of Being Reconciled to Creation, Phil shared a quote from a Native American. And his perspective was, I don't remember exactly how it went, but that he, like, when they killed the buffalo, he like was sacred. He was like, thank you for your life that you just gave so that I can continue living. Wow. And I thought, what the heck? I just go and buy chicken, you know? But this guy, it was like he stopped what he was doing. He realized that something had to die so that he could keep living. And I thought, we don't even think about that. We throw that stuff away sometimes when we don't finish it. And it kind of opened my eyes a little bit more to like how much more reconciliation I need. So, yeah.